Hello, this is Todd Luck, and this is a review of the Rise of Ultraman number 5 from Marvel Comics. This is the last issue in this particular miniseries, but they have solicited the next miniseries, which is called Trials of Ultraman. And so let's talk about this cover. The cover is actually the most effective one we've gotten since the first issue, which was done by Alex Ross. Alex Ross did a beautiful first issue cover, but it had nothing to do with the interior. This one actually has something to do with the interior. This scene actually appears inside the comic as Ultraman fighting a giant monster, which is something we actually associate with Ultraman. So good job is actually a good cover. I don't know why it took us 4 issues to get a cover like this, but good going. And I want to note again that we're still using the tissue paper thin cover stock. And also the printing, unfortunately, has ink that will rub off on your hands very easily. The back covers of the comics I got this week definitely have had some ink rub on my hands. So just be careful with that. I don't know. I guess don't hold them when you're reading them. You know, lay them down or wear gloves or something. And so after 5 issues, we finally get a giant monster battle. And the artwork does rise to the occasion. It is mostly very good. I mean, there are some renderings here and there that I don't care for. I mean, this particular splash page is a good example. I love, how he draws Ultraman here punching a monster. The monster itself looks really weird. So it's sort of stuff like that. But for the most part, I think the artist does a pretty decent job drawing what he's supposed to draw here. I still would have preferred a more detailed, more realistic sort of art style overall on this series. But, again, I think he pulls through on this particular issue with the giant monster action. However, the story kind of bogs the action down. I mean, the action itself, the choreography is just kind of run-of-the-mill stuff, but what kind of bogs it down is all this dialogue. I know this is a convention, but it's just not done very well here. There's just tons and tons of dialogue, this back and forth between Ultraman and Fuji during the battle that just doesn't feel right. It feels like the monster would have to sit there and pause for Ultraman to hear all of this dialogue in the middle of this fight. It's just feels completely unnatural for there to be this much damn conversation, this much damn debate and monologues and all this stuff in the middle of this supposedly heated monster battle. And so I just found it really, really distracting. I know, again, it is a convention of pop culture, to have these conversations while you're fighting. It gives the reader something to read during the action. But, it's done better. Like, the guys who can do it best, can kind of work it in. Like, if you watch good anime, they'll actually pause during the fight and try to find reasons for them to do that, to actually talk. The bad ones is, where, the hero is just rambling on and on and on, and the villain is just sitting there, letting them talk for no reason during the battle or something like that. And that's kind of what this feels like. And overall, I just didn't find the writing engaging, just like the last 4 issues. I found it dumb, I found it derivative, and it just doesn't feel like Ultraman at all. I don't know how something like this gets approved, but it just feels like they really needed to come up with a better concept for this miniseries than the one we got. Let me talk about the ending. So let me give you some spoilers. If you don't want them, just, stop the video now. I can't recommend this miniseries, but let me go into the specifics at the end to kind of illustrate what I'm talking about. So remember how they've been doing this kind of rip-off Men in Black thing where they've been trying to cover up the monsters? And you would think, like, since a giant monster has appeared and people have seen it, that's it. There's no way to cover it up anymore. No, they've actually said that because they stopped it at sea, they can explain it away as a hologram and people won't know that it was a real monster. Why not just have the monster appear someplace remote and have Ultraman have defeated it there, just like, in the TV series? That's what happened with that first monster. It appeared, in some kind of wilderness to a very few witnesses. Wouldn't that have been more plausible? Remember how I said that dimension that they were sending the monsters to looked like the containment unit in Ghostbusters? Well, it turns out for whatever reason, the dimension actually exists as a containment unit in our reality. There is an actual device here that contains the dimension. I don't know. This just came out of nowhere at the end. I don't even know. I don't even have an explanation for this. It's just like all of a sudden they walk up and like, hey, this dimension has been in this device the entire time. And so what they decided to do, remember they established that it was going to burst because there's too many monsters in there. And so last issue ended with them accidentally releasing one of the monsters, right? So they're in that situation. What do you think they're going to do? Do you think they're going to maybe carefully release the monsters one at a time to kind of diffuse that so it won't burst? No. They decide instead to let them all out in what they say is a controlled explosion of this dimension, which they say is going to have the monsters appear somehow in like these abandoned remote places. There's no explanation as to why that would happen. I guess we just have to take their word on it. So they're going to unleash all these monsters that kill people on the planet at one time. And they're like, well, we can just take them one at a time. I just have no words. It's just the dumbest damn thing I've ever read. And the ending doesn't even touch on the things that were established in the first issue. In the first issue, they established that the man that we see as running the science police died in the 50s. He was killed by aliens, so he has to be some kind of alien, posing as that guy. They don't even touch on that at all. I guess that'll be the next miniseries, maybe, hopefully, if they don't forget that they did that in the first issue. There was no scene where Ultraman fights Ultra 7. They do have a cliffhanger ending where Dan Moriboshi does appear for one page, just as a cryptic setup. And that's it. So apparently, the stuff that they were setting up was not for this miniseries. It was for, I guess, maybe the next one. I don't know. It is glacially paced, as I have said. And so if you like it, hopefully you've got patience. And if you don't, it is a very, very slow moving train wreck. So yeah, as you can probably tell, I'm kind of exhausted with this mini-series. I'll probably pick up the first issue of Trials of Ultraman, just try it out. I can't make any promises going forward. Maybe I'll get it all just because I do have all the American Ultraman comics up to this point. But it's just kind of harder and harder to justify that $4 when it just doesn't even resemble Ultraman. I don't know who this is made for. I mean, as someone familiar with Ultraman, it certainly doesn't feel like it's made for me. And it's just hard for me to imagine this hooking a new reader either. So I'm just not, I don't know. I think this is made with the best of intentions. But sometimes, you get a lot of talented folks on a comic and somehow it just doesn't gel right. And, there were just a lot of ideas that someone along the way should have been like, yeah, let's think of something better. And it just doesn't happen. And, this is the result. At least in my opinion. I mean, there are going to be some people, this is their jam, and more power to you. You are making up for my suffering if you love this miniseries. I hope you do. I hope everyone loves this. I hope I'm the only one miserable when I read this. But I just can't personally recommend this, even though I love Ultraman. But there are a lot of good Ultraman comics out there that I do love. You can look up my retro reviews to see them. Ultraman's been published in America since the 90s, and there have been some great comics up till now. So, and they're mostly not that expensive. So, if you want to check out my retro reviews and maybe hunt some of those down, that would be cool. So anyway, that's it. Like and subscribe for more videos, and hopefully I will have more fun with the next comic I review. See ya.